Hi guys, Marco Vázquez here. Today we have a very exciting tutorial where we'll be creating our own PCB business card. We'll be using KiCad 6 and Inkscape version 1.0. We'll also be manufacturing this PCB in China and having it delivered to our door. It looks something like this. Amazing. So, as I said, we'll need Inkscape version 1.0. This is very important because we'll also be using an extension that's only capable of being used with Inkscape version 1.0. As I said, we have to go to version 1.0 and 1.0 and download it for whichever machine we're using. In my case, I'll just download this exe. I've already installed Inkscape, but this is a very simple installation which you will have no problem. Then we have to go for the extension. It's called SVG to Shenzhen. This extension will allow us to deliver the drawing that we do in Inkscape into a format that KiCad 6 can read. It's been abandoned for like 2 years, so that's why we need to download specifically Inkscape version 1.0.0, because I've tried with other versions and there's no way to get it going. So we'll go to releases and download the latest release, which is 2.18.7. We'll download the zip and open this. We have to extract this in a folder which is in users, your name. Here we have to search for the app data folder, which is hidden, so maybe you have to click this icon here on Windows. And as I said, app data, roaming, Inkscape and extensions. In my case, I've already copied this, so I don't have to copy it again, but you'll just have to copy this from this zip file to this folder. Then we start Inkscape. Okay, so now we're in Inkscape and we're ready to start with the PCB. We have previously installed the extension, which we can find here on SVG to Shenzhen. Let's prepare the document. This will create a canvas of 100 by 100 millimeters with all of the common layers on a PCB, like the front silk screen, front copper, etc. Let's click apply. And our canvas is ready. And our layers are here. We have to first show the layers. And here we can find all of the common layers from a PCB, like drill, drawings user, silk screen, copper, silk screen. And this layer here, that's just a background. That's this square here, which we'll need in order not to get out from the main drawing. So let's start by defining the copper layers. Let's make the drawing of a common credit card, which is around this size. It is 85.6 millimeters by 54 millimeters with its bevel radius of 1.5 by 1.5 millimeters. Let's center it a bit and let's fill its inside with a bit of gray color, so we can still see what we're drawing. Why do I give it a gray or black color? Because the SVG to Shenzhen will interpret this gray or black color for KiCad to tell him that it's just a copper layer. If it is white, the SVG to Shenzhen extension will think that there's no copper there. So that's why I'm always painting in either gray or black. So now we have the back copper layer. Let's Ctrl C. Let's get into the front copper layer and let's paste. Here we have it. We have snapping enabled here. If we unclick it, we don't have it enabled anymore. But for now, let's just keep it enabled so everything's easier. And perfect. So now we have the outline of the PCB, and let's start exposing copper, as you saw in the previous video where I have my name on exposed copper. To do that, we'll need to tell the SVG to Shenzhen that we don't want any front mask on that space. So we'll select the front mask, we'll select the edit the text object, and I like the Dubay font, so let's use that, and I think around 16 and bold will be good enough for my name. Perfect. So as I said, this will expose the copper that there's on the front copper layer. Let's write a bit more. Let's write, for example, my job description. Engineer, a bit smaller, let's say 12. So quite cool. As you can see, it's very similar to the PCB that I showed you before, with the exposed copper for my name. If you remember, I also have a bit of exposed copper here, a small circle, so I'll choose the circle and make a small 5mm by 5mm circle. I'm having the snapping enabled, so let me just disable it and delete it, and let's draw it again. If you can see in the bottom of the screen, I have the millimeters with the circle of the area of the circle, but in this case I'll just write it down over here on the top left, so it's much easier. And I have to fill it with black. Let's select here again and choose black. Let's close it down, and perfect. Now everything that somehow it got stuck on the front copper layer. No problem, I can simply right click it and move to layer front mask. Now it's on the front mask layer. And if I hide this layer, you can see, on the front mask layer, you can see everything that I've written here. So now let's do something else with this circle. Let's apply some other circles on the front copper layer. For example, here let's make a circle that doesn't have anything on the inside. Let's do the same, but with a circle that doesn't even have this outlier. So I'll click on the stroke and paint it white. This will give it a 3D look when you look it from the side in the PCB. Let's think, let's also draw a small white circle on the silk screen. Select the silk screen layer, select the circle and same as before, a 2.5 by 2.5 circle. And you have to paint it black. So SVG to Shenzhen knows that he has to paint on the front silk screen this small circle. Perfect. Let's space it out a bit. There you go. So pretty good. Let's make some other cool drawings on this side. Let's, for example, make some hexagons on the front copper layer. Be sure to select the front copper layer. Select the polygons tool and let's draw a small. If you press Ctrl, it switches between different angles of the hexagon, so it's easier to make a hexagon that's not pointing to one side. So let's make this one here. I think this is a good size. As before, don't fill it with. Let's fill it with white. I like the outline, the stroke, but if you had very thick or very thin stroke, you can change it from here. But let's keep it as it was. I like it there. Perfect. We're still on the front copper layer. And now let's copy and paste this everywhere in order to get a very business-like look, a very modern look. There it goes. Now if it's way too close to my phone number, so let's group everything together. Let's press click and shift and touch of the click on all of them, and let's group them. Group, and now we can move them all together without having to click every single one of them. Perfect. Now let's give it a bit more of a, let's expose the FR4 layer. How do we do that? If we want to expose the green FR4 layer, we don't want any copper on that place, so we'll go to the front copper layer and we'll draw a white circle, same as before, 2.5 by 2.5 millimeters, and a white stroke. Perfect. Now we won't have any copper on the front copper layer in this area, but we'll still have the mask. So we have to copy and paste this circle on the front copper on the front mask. Let's copy it, Ctrl V. It seems to be centered, and let's make it black, stroke black. Now what have we done? We have eliminated the copper from this side, from the frontal copper mask, and we have eliminated the front mask layer. We have to do the same thing on the back layer. So we'll select the back copper layer, and we'll draw a white circle here. As you can see, I can't see anything because it's at the back of everything here, so I can just hide these layers on top. I'll just keep the front mask so I can make a good circle that's centered around the one I just made. So 2.5 and 2.5. Let's move this one at the same spot. And now on the no, I meant the back copper, so I'll have to make it white. And stroke white. You can see it because it's being covered by the front mask, but if I hide it, it's there. Now we have to do the same thing on the back mask. So in order to not have to do the same thing again, I'll just copy here, Ctrl C, and copy it on the back mask, Ctrl V. And I'll try to position it on the same side. There it goes, more or less. I'll make sure to leave it good in a good position later. So now let's see everything again, and perfect. So now let's also use the drill layer. In order to use the drill layer, we'll have to make a circle that's not filled. So let's make it as all of the circles from before, 2.5 by 2.5, not filled, and a black stroke. That will tell KiCad to make a drill hole in that spot. As you can see, it's in the drill layer. So now everything from the front side of the PCB is ready. Let's start drawing a little bit of the back side of the PCB. Let's hide everything so we don't touch anything. Front copper, and we're ready. As we made before, we have these circles that will expose the FR4 layer. So now we want to, as you saw in my PCB, I want to expose the copper for my portfolio and my specializations. Let's select the back silk screen here, and let's just write my specialized in, a bit smaller, .12 seems okay, and my portfolio. Since it's on the back of the PCB, we'll have to mirror everything. You can either do it by pressing H or by clicking on the object and going here on the top left. Flip horizontally. That way we can flip everything easily. Now we can also import images from Windows. Like for example, here I have the QR code that directs to my web page. So let's just import it here. Use the default settings. Make it a bit smaller. If you press Ctrl, it will reduce its size on a 1-to-1 basis. But as you can see, if I'm exposing the copper here, maybe it will have my phone will have some problems recognizing the black parts being a silver color or a gold color, depending on the finish that you choose. So I'll have to invert these colors. In order to invert these colors, you have to go to Filters, Color, and Invert. You have to invert the lightness. Now it's perfect. it's as we want it to be. The black parts will be the exposed copper, so the white parts will be white. Now I'll get some time to do this by myself, so I'll just shut down for a bit and show you the finished result in a while. So as I said, I've been working on the PCB for a while. I've added some icons for the email, for the phone. I've also prepared a little bit in a more aesthetic way all of these hexagons. And the back layer, I've added some lines which will remove the copper on the back copper layer, which will give it a 3D look. I've also added some small drawings for the 3D design, drones, microcontrollers. And so we're completely ready to export this into KiCad. So the thing we have to do is go to extensions, back to the SVG to Shenzhen, and export to KiCad. I'll export this into a new folder, select it. I'll export it as a project. Some people can export it as a module, but I've had no luck doing it. So I'll just export it as a complete project. I'll click on Flatten Bezier, which will be useful if you have any lines in your drawing, and click Apply. It will think for a few seconds. And it's ready. Now on my new folder that I created before, I have all of these files, and we're interested on the PCB layout. As you can see, it's everything went very well. All of the layers are here, and if we look at it on the 3D viewer, we can see a small problem, and that's that we don't have the edge cut layer, which we'll be drawing now. Some people are lucky exporting the edge cuts layer, but I've not had any luck, so I'll do it by hand here. So it's finished. I'm sure there's a easier way to do that, but here we are. Let's see it on the 3D viewer. Everything's okay. So time to export it. We have to go to the plot menu. We will be outputting it in the Gerber's directory. Let's generate the drill files. I'll just simply use the default ones. Generate drill file. Done, no problems, close. This is not a problem for the use case we are using now, so let's simply hit plot. Let's close it down and let's get into our file. Here are the Gerbers, front, back copper, front mask, and PTH, which are the holes. Let's zip it. So let's upload these Gerber files to the JLCPCB webpage. Let's add the Gerber file. It will take some seconds while it processes the Gerber files. And 85.6 by 54. Everything seems to be correct. I love the black color of JLC PCB. It has that matte look that I love. And if you're going to be handing out these PCBs, you should be choosing the lead-free hustle, because you don't want to be giving out lead to everyone that you meet. This will make the PCB like €1 more expensive, but we can deal with that. You can also choose a smaller thickness of 0.8 millimeters, but this will bring the price to like 18 times more expensive. So we'll just go with the 1.6 option and the lead-free hustle. I also like to remove the order number, which makes it a bit more expensive. And that's about it. I'll just save it to cart and have it delivered in around 12 to 15 days. So after a few weeks, the PCB arrived at my house, and as you can see, it's pretty much perfect. The black matte color is incredible when you look at it in person. It's not as cool on the camera. And as you can see, there's the drill hole, the FR4 layer, the different pores of copper, the silk screen, and the exposed copper. On the back we can find the portfolio, which you can easily read with whatever mobile phone you have. There's the different specializations. And I also ordered this PCB from PCBWay, which has a black glossy color. As you can see here, it's reflecting the lights that I have, which I don't like as much, but and lastly, I wanted to thank Chris Tooley from Hackaday, who had a very similar PCB from whom I took a lot of inspiration from.
You ain't seen nothing yet. Raised lettering, pale nimbus, white.
Impressive. Very nice. Let's see Paul Allen's card. Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my God. It even has a watermark.
Something wrong? Patrick? You're sweating.